Well, thank you both for two quite inspiring discussions you've started here. And I want to go off start and lead off with the theme you just introduced at the end there, which was interrogating reality. And that we are called to interrogate reality. And Sandra, you mentioned this idea of we have this baptismal call, and we have this biblical call to love our neighbor and to treat folks with dignity, but yet often sometimes our norms don't really show that. Our biblical call and our Christian call says that. So we struggle. So we need to interrogate that. So I was curious, since you both had some very common themes happening there. First, let me open up to you both of any ways you guys want to interrogate together and ask one another. Because I saw you both. I was sitting next to you, nodding your head and just really feeling each other. So to really hear what thoughts you had for one another. So let me begin with you, Sandra, when you heard Adrien speak.
It resonated a lot with exactly what you said about our norms and customs and traditions. Sometimes are stronger than our beliefs. Could you talk to us a little bit more about that? Because I was like, yes, that's so true.
If I had to emphasize more about customs and norms being, stronger than our beliefs, I would just go back to my tradition that I know better. In my tradition, in the old days, when something or neighbors or somebody happened to do harmful to you, you would never give him or her a hand. But my belief as Christian is to forgive to who? The one who did wrong to me. And if I go beyond my belief and do what the culture and norms doesn't allow me to do, I will be excluded. That when I say that community is always exclusion and inclusion, when there are people who take courage to address these injustices and prejudices, they are automatically, or some ways, excluded from their original groups, and they are seen as, how can I call them? Betrayers. At least to my culture. I don't know what is here. And so often, with that power of culture and tradition, people will just hold back from being courageous enough to say or to do. And in the work we are doing, the healing and rebuilding our community was just to revisit those things that have held us prisoner of no functional tradition and stand for our beliefs. If people have been killed in the church, I'm talking about Burundi and the genocide in Rwanda, when clergy have taken part in what happened, I wonder how much they stood for their beliefs. But they stood for their norms and customs.
Yeah, that was a big topic yesterday as well, where how the church stood in the face of slavery and being a facilitator at some point of not pushing against the culture. So, Adrien, now when you heard Sandra's talk, you were sitting right next to me. I saw your head nodding a lot. What do you want to revel in here from Sandra's talk?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing the story about your father being a role model to you. And when I was just listening to your presentation, I just said, should I ask her, what do you think about today's generation? Parents vis-a-vis their children. Are parents being role model to their kids, to the next generation, just to help them to be so spiritually grounded as you are? Because you have been with a loving and caring father. So with the problems America is living now, what is the role, or should be the role of parents vis-a-vis their children?
Well, thank you for the question. Those of you who know me or who have heard about me or seen anything on Facebook, I am in love with my son. I love my child since before he was born. And one of the things about Ellis is that he is homosexual. And that was a huge part also in our family, because my dad, again, very traditional, we grew up evangelical. And for me, to transmit that love to Ellis is incredibly important. And to speak about it especially with Latino communities, because we are very traditional still in a lot of our Latino churches who are not very open, and of course to a lot of other churches, right? I know that the Episcopal Church seems to be very progressive, but a lot of us are still not. And it's not about just saying, oh yeah, everybody do whatever you want, but it's about that, again, we go back to love. My parents taught me by just being loving, by me seeing them praying and reading the Bible and stuff. I mean, Ellis, my son, reads the Bible and more than I do. But one of the things that, when I was teaching, parents would ask me, like, well, my son doesn't want to read. What can I do? And the first question I asked is, do you read? And they're like, oh. I mean, how do you expect your child to read if you're not reading? So how do I expect my child to learn about Jesus or to learn a song or to do whatever if I'm not doing it, right? So that's a big thing for me. To me, God calls us to love and love our children. And because through our love, we're going to teach them how to be loving adults as well. And I hear this a lot, from people. I post a lot of stuff on social media about LGBTQ plus people, and people often ask me about that. I was in Honduras, and one of the young ladies asked, what do you think about, homosexuals? What does God think about homosexuals? And I looked at her and I showed her my tattoo, and I said, my baby is gay. And, the mother bear there with the claws, like I'm going to take care of my baby. And that's how God is, I believe, to all of us. Whatever it is that we are, progressives, conservative, gays, straights, trans, God is that mother bear with the claws ready to help us out when other people are trying to be evil to us. So that's what I think about parenting. Thank you.
I had a question for you both that here, I'm married into a family that where groupism, the culture of groupism is much more, I've learned a lot about that, what it means to be, as opposed to an individualistic culture. And in the States, we have this rugged individualism, which is part of the American identity. And both of you talked about this need and the biblical push for us, and it's been a theme so far for this gathering, of just getting outside these walls, listening to our neighbor, loving on our neighbor, being formed by our neighbor. And that forms us of who and our purpose as a church. How do we deal with that now with the culture and the norm of maybe of a Western society, or just even here in the States, of this rugged individualism? Have you, as leaders, as you both are consultants, has that come up of how do you sort of do a dance with an American culture which really prizes more the individualism as opposed to the groupism, that if you have an issue or a struggle, you don't expect the whole community to come out and help you, where in other cultures it's just kind of assumed. So have you noticed how you deal with that tension and how to work through that, especially from a church perspective? And I'm assuming part of that is going to be going back to the love of Christ, of just coming with love. But can you both speak on that?
Oh, of course. Cultural traditions are social conceptions that are meant to be leading a society at a certain time. That is. We can be communal-oriented or individualistic-oriented. This has been defined at a time of the history of it and was meant to be for a reason. So going back, revisiting our tradition, our culture, is just to be on time. That's the watch. Why should I hold on things that are no longer functional? So that's an absolute reality. Those are social conceptions or constructions meant to lead a society at a certain time. So the church of yesterday should not be the church of today because we're in just permanent change. How do we adjust? How do we adapt? And how do we continue with the work? this scholar who said, crisis is that the old is dying and the new is not yet born. So we need just to see how the old dies and how we welcome the new. I am so happy to be in the States because there's so much diversity, which is a richness that we should be proud of. And building around that, and just, what community do we have? What society do we have? Van der Kolk said that our brain is just wired in just being with our human being look like. We are not meant to be alone. We are meant to be bound, living with other human beings. Biologically, physiologically, that is. So how do we reorganize? How do we make a new construction, social construction, addressing the current issues? I would be happy church taking lead in that.
And I think your partner, Heather from UTO, she has a great quote that I've always loved. Heather, are you here? She's mentioned that in order for the church to move forward, we have to go through Good Friday first, allow something to die in order for new life to grow up. To get to Easter, you got to go through Good Friday. So there's some old constructs that need to die in order for some new life, for that resurrection to happen. And a lot of it's going to happen with us getting outside those doors. Right?
Thank you for emphasizing that.
Yeah. Sandra, did you have a notion too?
Just very quick. One of the things that I think is very interesting in the States is that we do, value that individualistic thing. However, what I have seen when churches open their doors to Latino ministries or any other group, it's like, oh, but you don't have to give. It's okay. Or, we're not gonna expect for you to do more. We're gonna give this to you. So it's that perpetuation of we are the parents. You're our stepchildren. And instead of just allowing for the group to grow. Yeah. And we may, a lot of our groups that have come, undocumented, et cetera, may not have a lot of money, but we have enough to give out of gratitude to God. But that takes, like what the presiding bishop says, a lot of times we fail in our formation. And that is the one thing that we need to talk about is formation, stewardship, and it's all about gratefulness. And that becomes where the group comes together, to give because we're grateful. Church shouldn't be about the individualistic type thing. I mean, we are all together, we are one, if we really believe that. But I think sometimes we don't. So, that's what I notice in churches that I visit. Thanks for coming, but, stay over there. Thanks for joining us, but don't sing so loudly. Or, it's and that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. So again, there's a change that's needed and a change of perception. But I guess the question is how? How does that begin if you are in a community, let's say a church community, that's pretty has a strong template? Maybe it is individualistic, or it's placing everyone has their role. And as a consultant, what's your advice to the leadership, whether that's laity or clergy, to come in and say, listen, this is biblical. We are born to be bound to others, to serve, to love our neighbors. And right now we're not really doing that. What's that approach you take instead of alienating people and criticize them? But how do you encourage them to step into this mission of God, this of the all family?
I think it's what you were saying that Heather has said. There's a famous pastor that had that what's it called, the sermon that just said, today is Friday, but Sunday is coming. That's old. I mean, it's a thing. Today is Friday, but Sunday is coming. We are dying, but Sunday is coming. We're going to have the resurrection. I also, when I hear people say, oh, we're dying, and I'm like, we're children of the resurrection. We know that death is not death. Death is the beginning of life. I don't know why we're so afraid. I don't get it. But when I talk to leaders, is that it's if we really see, the big question, Christian, is when people ask us, and I'm sure that this happens to you a lot too. It's like, do you really want us to be here, or do you just want us to tell you that you're doing okay? Because I'm here to tell you that you're not doing okay. and they don't want that. And it's almost like, their check is kind of going like, well, now we're gonna keep the check. But it's, and I think that's, if we really want to be honest, let's really be honest. And a lot of times, people don't want you to be honest. And people invite me to sing montaña in Spanish when I can sing in English too. But they want to keep me in my little box because we're comfortable with you being in your box. We're not comfortable when you want to, get radical and have this Jesus, come into our lives. And it's I don't know, it's scary to some.
Right.
Yeah, embracing difference, embracing diversity. I am so happy that, sorry.
Sorry, I said salud, I'm sorry. God bless you. She sneezed, I'm sorry.
Okay. So some of our faith communities in northern Indiana have just started services in Spanish. How do we offer, just welcome the other in our midst? There is one thing, baby care or child care on Sunday. There are communities like Burundian. We are so tired, being with our kids on Sunday because all weekdays we are away, just in the fields, and we don't have time. When we come home, they're just sleeping. We don't have time to be with kids. And here we come on Sunday. We are just worshiping. They say, "Oh no, you know what? Kids should go to child care."
Right.
It's good, but with families from those cultures, they are so sensitive. That's it might be welcoming them, just providing space for their worship, but they are not really worshiping. I'm not really worshiping because I need to be with my kids. We need just to sing together. We need just to give thanks to God for having been kept us alive together. So it's another way that church, as we were talking about, how church should take the lead in being welcoming, being sensitive to the differences in our life.
Yeah.
Who's there? And you can't know until you have built these relationships we talked about.
Yes.
Just sit and talk. It takes time, but it will pay off.
Yeah. Well, I want to open up if there's any questions or thoughts about this. We have a lot of great themes here. A lot of it about the reformation of the church, and once you get out there, you have to let go of holding on to what we think church is, because God might have a different idea and want to reform it once you get out there and start welcoming. So, here we are. Steve, are you on?
There we go. So, are you going to sing?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you going to sing?
Sure, let's sing. Now? Oh. I have decided to follow Jesus. He decidido seguir a Cristo. Seguir a Cristo. No vuelvo atrás. No vuelvo atrás. Yeah.
Both of you mentioned the importance of being bodily present in your neighborhood and walking in your neighborhood. Can you share very briefly a revelation or something that you learned while walking in your neighborhoods?
Yes, I can. I'm going to just excuse myself because I'll be just relating to my home country, Burundi. As I said, I started in my position last August, and I am now just meeting with clergy and lay people from the congregations, just finding out what to do. But when it comes to working with neighborhood or neighbors, back in Burundi, with my position, I was among those who could join the two ends easily. But accepting to stay in a remote area where I was doing a whole week workshop, eating with, I was not going to say, okay, I can go to a hotel or restaurant, have my lunch and dinner. But eating with them was part of learning what are their hardships. That's where I was told, my son is doing this and this and this. These are problems we are facing if we don't come to church on Sundays because of this and that. But, yeah, we know who's coming, who's not coming, and the one who doesn't come is just qualified as, sinner. You gave less importance to the service, and you went just to look for your own interest. But people are struggling with real matters in their life. So that's what I call working the brokenness with our neighbors. I listen, I share. I don't find myself as superior, but I am equal to any of the community members I work with. And I really hold great respect for the amazing work they do. Second, I was astonished. One person that's still in Burundi lost all his family members in the massive killings that occurred. But he knew who was killing because he almost died, and by God's grace, he was left alive. And he went back to the person who did it. I said, I know, I'm not taking you to court, but could you accept me as your brother? Because I have no one left. Learning from that person, there are so many things I'm still struggling with. There are so many people maybe are still holding anger against. But learning from such a person, I went as a facilitator in the healing period, but I was a participant to that person. So that's another way of working the brokenness with our neighbors.
I think that's huge, and I think what I have found also is just there's so much need. People want that relationship. People want to be seen. People want to be heard. And when we do go outside, and we actually do it as Jesus would, where we listen and we just let them unload or whatever they need to do, it's a beautiful and very tiring also experience for us, because you take on so much, especially those of you who are clergy. Sometimes will take on even more because people want to share some deep things. So yeah, but there's so much need out there.
Steph Spellers talks about that. Take a prayer walk. Make sure you pray your neighborhood. And my rector started doing that. And he hasn't been bringing people to church. He's been bringing people to Christ because he encounters neighbors who are in tears. And he says, I'm here. And they talk. It's amazing what can happen when you do that simple prayer walk in your neighborhood. So.
Hi, my name is Augie. I'm from San Diego, California, but I also was born in Peru. So,
Wow.
and we're really funny people, even though we don't look like it. I was raised Roman Catholic, as most of the Peruvians are, and the reason why I decided to become an Episcopalian is because in the church the church that I belong to is St. Paul's Cathedral. We're really friendly, extremely inclusive, and we have a very mix of people. We're talking about the Hispanos and the gay and lesbian. I am gay, and one of the things that really bothered me is usually when they said, that in our own religion, there are churches that don't accept us, and I don't know what message we're sending as Episcopalians if we cannot do our own housekeeping. So how do you think, where should we go from here, where we all think the same way, where we all love the same way, and we all accept everyone the same way? We come a long way having women priests, women bishops, a black bishop now, and it's just confusing to me. So I'm not so sure if anybody has the answer for that.
One thing that I also often say to people is if the only person of color is our presiding bishop in your pictures or as your friends, you're not doing it right. Same thing happens with LGBTQ plus people, right? If the only person that you have on there is Bishop, great, no. Robinson, thank you so much, sorry. You're not doing it right. You know, in the Bible though, we see, you know, nobody did it right really. I mean, you know, we're all hoping to go and, you know, go forward. One of the things that I have studied about and have read about is, you know, it depends on your circle, right? So for you to be able to continue to become more and more open, not progressive, but open, is who are the people in your circle? Again, look at your pictures on Facebook, look at your pictures, look at all your friends. If they're all white males, then maybe you need to also, you know, do a wider net, right? Wider net, you know? And it's the same thing with any other. For me, what I'm learning during Lent, what I keep hearing is that my net that I need to go white, actually need to go whiter with straight, older males that are conservative, because that's not part of my circle. And so if anybody out there wants to be my friend and get to know me, please, I'm serious, because that's who my other is. And if I'm asking y'all, you know, because I'm the other for a lot of people, but if I'm asking everybody else to consider us, then I need to do the same thing.